We had black talent on the air in their primetime shows, and of course he did. He had Stephen A. Smith, he had Bill Daughtry, and his back staff, his sales force, and his marketing people. There were people of color in there, and he brought them all to the town hall meeting and made his pledges and lived up to it. He did what he said he would do. He had all these people of color on the air, and lo and behold, he was doing a great job. They did their nice. In fact, they weren't even here that long. He was at Harlem Week, did their live broadcast from Harlem Week.
Yeah, so he was engaged in the community
and let them know we're here, we're with you. And I guess they came in with a bang and started doing quite well, and I guess their ratings were great. And lo and behold, he gets promoted upstairs into a larger
Now, he
job.
was already general manager, so what's...
Yeah, he's vice president, general manager, so he gets a bigger job, and he's moved upstairs to a larger portfolio. But guess what? They have moved him away from this New York #1 outlet, and he never gets replaced. He doesn't get replaced by a brother. He doesn't get replaced by anybody. They got this Hydra monster, all white, running the station, and guess what they do? Their lineup becomes nothing but all white males, and I think Bill Daughtry gets relegated to 60 seconds or 90 seconds within
from
the
the hour that
day.
he had at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I think he still does the weekend public affairs, and he's got a weekend show. But you know what? Prime time is Monday through Friday. And you need people of color who can articulate our issues
That's right.
within the context of that primetime broadcast, and they don't have that. And because they came out with promises and they haven't, we need to be holding their feet to the fire, and we need to find out what they're going to do about making sure that lineup is representative of our community. 5 white males on a station where we used to have Bob Slade, Tom Joyner, Michael Baisden, a whole bunch of people dealing with issues that were germane to our community, and we got 5 white males now. That does not make sense. That's an insult to our community.
Isn't that something? You know, we have been fighting against that. We've been organizing to have representation. We have these issues, and in just a few moments we'll be at the top of the hour, the 10 o'clock hour, and I really feel as though we need to cover some more of this. So I'm going to bring up a little bit more of Dana Landry, and I'm going to make sure that this conversation continues. Oh, what a sweet opportunity we have to add Herb Boyd's voice to this important conversation. Good morning, Herb.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, glad to see you.
I hate to intrude like this, Eric.
There's no intrusion.
He's always so humble,
Right.
But this couldn't be more perfect.
Hey,
You know what I mean?
timing, media,
We're
telling the stories.
We're telling
Whoa.
the stories, and you should recap for Herb.
We were talking about the transition from 98.7 KISS FM to ESPN Radio, New York Radio went all sports, and how well it transitioned when they had a brother as vice president and general manager, Dave Roberts. But then when they promoted him upstairs, everything changed and they went backwards in their diversity program. And so the bottom line is the community needs to make sure that that gets rectified. In a nutshell.
That I would dare say so, And Herb, I wanted to applaud you and laud you with regards to your work over your lifetime, but also especially with Imhotep Gary Bird in keeping the issues, alive for us. When does that air? When do your conversations?
Well, I usually do. I think they're in their fundraising drive now. For the last couple of weeks, I haven't been on the air on BAI.
WBAI. Huh?
Yeah, but on LIB, I do that every Sunday evening with him.
What time?
At 8:00.
Oh yeah.
We try to hit it at 8, somewhere in and around 8:00. You can never be certain about that, but somewhere between 7:45 and 8:00, I'm on the air with him for about 20-25 minutes. That's the open mic. That's when we have the callers. That's when he does his call out to the people, and they can go ahead and get the drum beat going from the public. And usually I'll have Bill Perkins, Keith Wright, Charles Rangel. They'll join me on the air, particularly in the political season. Of course, we're just coming out of that.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And this is going to give us, before you jump over to WBAI for On the Count.
Exactly.
Give us an opportunity to talk a little bit right after I do my little ID here. We're almost at the top of the hour, and I have to let the family know that we are in the Gardens of Tranquility and Contemplation and First Light here at WHCR and WHCR.org all over the world. And we're striving, as always, as is our mission, to keep people enlightened and encouraged and, in a meditation or in transformation. But how do you do that without information? It's absolutely essential that you be informed duly about the landscape that you inhabit, about what's going on in North Carolina. And at this moment, our legal ID.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
And you're tuned in with your sister Daia here, and my very special guests are Eric B. Tate Jr. and his EVT Productions and Media Magic in Mount Vernon, and Herb Boyd, Professor Herb Boyd, who is joining us. And you've got a launch that's coming up with regards to your book again.
Yep, the Diary of Malcolm X. We'll do that February 21st. Maybe on that date. Again, it's maybe in and around that date, depending on what the schedule is at the Schomburg. It'll be coming out of the Schomburg in and around the assassination date of Malcolm X, the 50th anniversary of that, in fact.
And the diary.
And that's the Diary of Malcolm X.
See, the diary helps us to understand the comings and goings, the thoughts and the learning patterns, the intimate involvement. It's such humanizing. It's so beautiful.
Yes, I did it with one of his daughters, Ilyasa El-Shabazz, and as she says so well, Malcolm speaks without any intervention. And I think it complements the autobiography in so many brilliant ways, kind of filling in some of the blanks there, some of the issues that are raised. But one of the revelatories that we discover in reading the diary, in fact, the CIA agent, presumably who was shadowing Malcolm at that time, throughout his travels. So that was quite an astonishing thing for us.
That is quite a discovery.
Because he always suspected that he was being, under surveillance by the FBI and the CIA, but he was looking for, some white man to be doing it, but discovered this was a black man doing it.
Well,
so it was a real spook, huh?
This wasn't merely surveillance. This was surveillance, and there were some life-threatening moments. Did he note those times when he had been poisoned in his diary?
He doesn't really say that he was poisoned. He was had problems throughout the travels. Traveling is never easy.
With illness.
Yeah, I mean, you eat certain foods.
That's right.
And the diarrhea. He had diarrhea.
Even if they don't poison you, might have problems.
Yeah, right. You don't have to worry about, but understand this, though. Here's Malcolm traveling, not like John Kerry, not like Hillary Clinton, these other secretaries of state,
yes.
But he was our, minister without portfolio. Our black president, in effect, because he's meeting with all these other highfalutin potentates, from one end of Africa to the other, and representing us in a very, very brilliant way, an eloquent way as only he could. So, he's traveling alone, and he has to kind of quickly, from Ghana, then suddenly he's in Egypt, then he's in the Sudan, Khartoum, suddenly he's in Nairobi, he's all over East Africa, he's with Julius Nyerere. So he's moving from one station to another without any kind of entourage. So he has to quickly, and of course Malcolm was a quick study. Dr. John Henry Clark said he was the best student he ever had. And of course, I kind of, so what am I, chopped liver? But anyway, no, I can understand exactly what he's saying, because Malcolm had to quickly adjust to the political, cultural, economic dimensions as he moved from one country to another without having a briefing team. When all these Secretary of States, have all these folks out there, here are your talking points.
Yes.
Here's the background information.
All the research,
here's what
all
the
the
issues are.
Yes.
He had to quickly pull all that together. It's amazing. And it comes through in the diary, too.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
He's doing his own reading. He's doing his own research. He's doing everything as a one-man band.
Right.
I mean,
And let me tell you, you're talking about heads of states and or would-be heads of states.
Sure.
And you have to know who the players are, and you have to know exactly what the issues are, so
That's
you
right.
can imagine what he's doing. So yeah, I can imagine Dr. Clark saying he was his most brilliant student, because the man had a brilliant mind.
Yes, definitely. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
It's so important to have a breadth of these issues and to have the desire to be informed about what our life is like, who is for us, who's against us, and to be able to communicate this openly around the world, throughout the world. But then when you find yourself in a situation that we find ourselves here in this country, where slowly our voice is being diminished through the elimination of outlets and organs, as you describe, what is it that we can do? I mean, just take Like It Is, for example. Maybe you should recap what happened to Like It Is.
Well, first of all, you lost Gil Noble. And losing who is the essence, the lifeblood, the mother's milk of Like It Is was Gil Noble, was his creation. He had been the moderator, for a number of years. And I think his Reporters Roundtable was like a critical thing that he did there in terms of recounting the week-long activities in the black world, and bringing in different voices each week to do that. I was fortunate enough to do it for about 10 years with him, off and on, with people like Milton Alamati. You talk about the black press, the Black Star News, along with Les Payne, who for many, many years was a guiding force at Newsday and a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist at that. So you had those voices on a weekly basis that we could count on. Of course, now you got something called Here and Now. And I always tell people, if you take those two words and put them together, it spells nowhere. but they do their best, But
You have to come from the right perspective. And if your perspective is just to get ratings as opposed to really inform, and there's a political bent and an urgency to Like It Is, and there's no political bent and no urgency to here and now.
There you
So
that pretty much sums it up.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the sad truth. So that has been, we've been eviscerated, in a sense. Our ability to express these concerns and to inform. I sat in front of this programming from the time it began until the time that Gil Noble died, to learn.
Yes.
At once a week, to learn. And I learned so much, so well informed about who we are, what our possibilities were, what our contributions to the society is, and to lose an opportunity to be able to communicate these things as well as address our issues.
Let me tell you a backstory about how dedicated Gil Noble was. When I was at the network, the executive producer of the network news wanted to get another young, vibrant African-American reporter, correspondent on camera for the network. And he knew I knew Gil, and he said, look, would you go just sound him out about whether or not he'd be interested in moving from the local station, because Gil was doing the weekend WABC news in addition to the Like It Is show. And I said, sure, I'd be more than happy to, because I figured the network needed as many people of color across the national, international news as other people. And so I went and I talked to Gil, and Gil basically said, that's a very interesting offer, but I think I can do much more where I am. He basically said, at no point making an official offer, because, and trust me, you make that move, that's a lot of money in your paycheck when you become a national network correspondent at a major network. So I have no idea what the commensurate value may have been when he stayed where he did and didn't make that jump. But he knew where he was and what he wanted to do, and that he probably would have much more editorial control over what he was doing. And so he just said, thanks, but no thanks.
I think it's an important word, or two words right there, editorial control.
Yes.
Because we're now, we're left with the proposition of what happens with the archives.
Yes.
All of those shows, which were so educational, as you point out.
That's right. They were.
We look forward to that classroom each week. And so you have those tapes and everything, and of course, they've gone back and forth, family, in terms of who owns and control those tapes, and what will happen to them in terms of putting together. Dr. Jeffries, and before the late Joseph Fleming, who was the attorney for the family, for Gil Noble, before his death, there were plans being made to get on with a couple of foundations and see if they could gather the money and then gain control over those tapes and put it into an educational format. With the death of Joe Fleming, everything kind of flittered away. I have heard no more discussion. Of course, his daughter, and she's done a remarkable job to kind of keep Lisa Noble, to keep things going on that. But even she, when you ask her about it, she seems to be, her hands are up in the air. She has no idea what happens, who controls them, whether ABC owns them, and you have to go through a lot of legal fights in order to have the express license on those. So it's all like pretty puzzling and baffling at this point in terms of what happens with the archives.
Very disturbing.
Yeah, she actually needs a good lawyer to look over every piece of paper that was ever written between Gil, ABC, what the contracts say, the whole bit.
Exactly.
Because I know some of that stuff was not shot under ABC's auspices. I know at the Black Documentary Collective, we did a thing at the Apollo with Gil and Harry Belafonte and whatever, and we shot that. The BDC actually is the owner of that, but we turned those over to Gil for a show he wanted to do. Those are sitting in his archives. I don't mind them sitting in his archives because they can be useful to the larger community.
Right.
But I don't want ABC
to control
claim they
them.
own that, because I know we at the BDC, the Black Documentary Collective, actually put that forum on and shot that footage. So there may be other similar footage in those archives. And so the paper trail on that has to be weeded out. And if I were the family, I would do possessions as 9/10 and say we own it all, and then you prove to us you that's the way I would go. but that's just
also,
me. You need a good lawyer.
They need the backup of all of us to participate and to bring our presence and our history and our conversation, just as you have that cited that specific example.
Well, I gave you an example, right?
Exactly.
There may be others.
And that example needs to be delivered to the family so that they can be armed with it and the understanding of why
It's always
so important to fight.
It's a very, very difficult situation, and historically, all you have to do is look at like 4 or 5 major iconic families in terms of what happened with intellectual property within those families. The King family and the kind of going back and forth in various litigation that has occurred there in terms of intellectual property. To say the Paul DeRobeson family, to say nothing of what happened with the Malcolm X situation that I have endured for the last 2 or 3 years in and out of court in terms of with injunctions here, and having all of the family, having all the daughters, the 6 daughters on the same page has not been easy.
Did you actually finally get everyone on the same page?
No, it's still not absolute,
Okay.
because just the other day we got a notification that we need another discussion on this thing. We thought we had settled this thing because
Okay.
it was settled with prejudice in the court, which means they can't bring it, anymore, the same injunction. But I don't know what's going on. It's problematic, and we're going to have to sit down at the table again.
Okay.
We thought we had gotten at least 3 of the daughters on the same page to move forward on this thing, but hey, it's always those little tricky items, what you call the fine print.
That is, it's
family
so
disputes
disturbing.
can be really, really difficult, because you're not really just talking a corporate thing. You're actually talking a family dispute.
Sure.
And that's what makes it so much more difficult.
Yeah, very emotional.
Well, it is a perfect example of the larger family, the black family, and our reluctance to engage in the kind of work that we need to do in order to bring ESPN and others into compliance. There's a position that they're obligated to in terms of bringing more information from our community, addressing our issues, and having the time, as you described, in prime time. Available. But we as a family are not fighting for it, unfortunately. And so we need to take the next step. And I'd like to encourage that. I'd like to encourage taking the next step, what do you suggest it might be?
Well, for the general public to assist you in your battle, you have to inform the general public. Okay? So the first thing is to let the general public know this is where we are. This is the struggle that we're in. And we can use any assistance that you can provide. But step 1 is getting the message out. Because if folks don't know you're in trouble, they can't come to your help.
And you're talking about all of the various media outlets, too. Because we're troubled.
That's right. We're
troubled on all of those fronts. You start talking about newsprint or hard copy, as a lot of young people refer to it. But the black newspapers in this country, and they're very terrible shape they're in, and they're kind of the canary in the tunnel. Because all you have to do is look at like what's happening with the major, dailies in terms of mergers and everything, and suspension of the morning editions of the papers.
Right. The daily news, they cut off so many people.
Newspapers in general, not just black newspapers. Newspapers are in a serious, almost death throw reorganization because their model has been destroyed by the internet. Period.
Right.
And so they still don't know how to make money on the internet. But the advertising dollars that used to fill those print newspapers no longer fill those print newspapers. They're losing subscription base because everyone's getting on their news on their smartphones and on their computers. And so when I say it's a death throw reorganization, if they don't successfully figure out a way to reorganize, they're pretty much going down the tubes. Pretty much.
That's
across the spectrum. Because
and how's the Amsterdam News? I mean, you've been with them almost 30 years now.
Exactly. And in February of '85, it'll be 30 years.
Yes, yes.
and it's been a good run, and they've given me great opportunities there. In fact, as I was talking to Mr. Garrison when he left here, he was talking about the classroom column that I've been doing for the last year and a half now. And,
it's been a year and a half.
And what it really means, to a lot of, from an educational standpoint, because again, Eric, we're talking about this not only as information, but education that the media has to do. And so we begin to strangle these various outlets. It cuts off a particular audience who historically, traditionally, look forward to information coming from that particular area. So they don't have it anymore. They have to turn to the other. And some of the older people in our community, they don't have access.
They're not doing smartphones.
To the internet.
That's
right. Or the new technology.
Exactly right.
Then they're cut off.
That's right.
So we have to look at television. And the limited number of voices we have on television. I was just watching the other night on MNN, the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, where I've been now offered a position on the board of directors there.
Oh, congratulations.
So what does that mean in terms of having an additional voice coming from this perspective that I have? And so since they're interested in having that perspective, I'm going to present it.
Oh, no.
Yes, indeed.
Folks like me who've been doing a show on MNN since 1991,
exactly,
definitely you need to be on that board.
That's right.
Yes.
Because the board needs to be representational of the full community. Manhattan, this metropolitan area is probably the most diverse community in North America, at least USA North America.
Yes.
There may be some others that may be equally as diverse, but when you put all the folk in these 5 boroughs,
no,
and in just the little island of Manhattan, there are a whole bunch of different folk here.
Well, I don't want us to take that for granted. I want us to understand what we're really up against. And as a perfect example, maybe you can help me understand what happened to make us have a Republican Senate. How the heck?
You got 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just
and I really have to get up to Mount Vernon to deal with my center. So I'm not going to get into this because we'll be talking
but
5 hours
I'm
worth
so
of
glad.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you came. You know what I mean? You see, we got so much to
There's
talk about.
There's more to talk about, and
Thank
we'll
you.
continue this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a
Folks,
pleasure.
you all have a great weekend.
Listen, I'm making a platform for you so that we can get our people organized and on the job of defending our right to speak about our issues.
Herb's been on Media Watch 1 or 2 times, so he knows
Sure.
we will deal with issues nationally, internationally, locally, neighborhood when we have
Exactly.
And what channel can we look at Media Watch?
It's MNN1, channel 34 in Manhattan, and then it's on RCN and
FiOS.
And FiOS,
Yes.
Okay, very good. And it's airing mostly?
every other Monday at 5:30.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, Herb,
So
please
that's
give me a synopsis. Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, first of all, you have a situation. Let me recommend to your listeners that they go to the Amsterdam News issue this week.
Okay.
Just pick up this week's paper.
Okay.
And read our editorial.
Okay.
I think we did our best to kind of summarize this, what you call a tsunami, this tidal wave of red that swept across the nation. All you have to do is look at like 3 critical areas now: the executive branch of the government, the judicial branch, and the legislative. Well, 2/3 of that is in Republican control. The Supreme Court, they got that. Probably going to have it for a while, Then you've got the legislative. Now you've got them to have the Senate and the House. So Congress belongs to the Republicans. All we have left is poor Obama.
Oh, my goodness.
the
And
executive
he's
branch.
so beleaguered.
Oh, brother. And I think it's very shrewd on his part quickly to quickly nominate. I think he's going to do it today. He's going to nominate Loretta Lynch to be the new Attorney General.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's trying to hurry to get that through under this particular Congress. But, of course, with Mitch McConnell coming in And, of course, with Boehner already there,
Yes.
I'm sure they're going to say, no, we're not going to vote until the turn of the year when the new Congress is in place.
Oh, you can predict that.
Yeah, I think they'll cherry pick that one. So what happens, though, if you look at the numbers tell it very clearly that if you look at the number of Republican governors we got in this country, look at the state legislatures in this country. There's 99 state legislatures. 69 of them are in the control of Republicans now. There's 31 Republican governors as opposed to 18 Democrats. So they got that covered. So you're looking like, how can we and what's going to happen? And how do we understand the situation? We have to command the narrative. What happened was Republicans, GOP grabbed and commanded so-called message or narrative. And as Malcolm used to say, the whole electorate got bamboozled. They got like smoked, snowed, and bought and was sold a bill of goods, and they bought it readily and went to the poll. You look at the exit polls and what people are saying, particularly older white voters, and always the midterms is a good barometer of what's going to happen in 2016. It already told us a little bit in 2010.
Oh, my.
But here we are. I mean, so it doesn't look good in terms of what's coming down the road on different issues out there. Look at what happens with the Affordable Care Act. That's in terrible trouble.
Terrible trouble. Yes.
Because already they're talking about repeal. Of course, the president will quickly veto that. He will veto that.
Yes.
But the thing about it, there's other smaller aspects of it that can be eviscerated. For example, the tax credit subsidies. They'll probably go after that, or the medical devices. They'll probably go after some of the smaller to see if they can kind of undermine the act and begin to pull some of the essentialities out of there. And you can bet your bottom dollar that's coming. And then you look at it in terms of like something like the Keystone XL pipeline. You know, they've been going back and forth on that. You know, here's this thing, this oil pumped from Canada to Nebraska. And it's good to have one of the representatives there lost, you know, in this race. So that takes one of those powerful voices out of there.
That's right.
But nonetheless, you've got 3 other powerful Republicans in place who can push it. Now they got the Congress in back of them. So the Koch brothers, who more or less own that pipeline, they're in great shape. And of course, they fueled all kind of money. They funneled all this money into races across the country.
All across the country.
So hey, you got the dollar. You got the bang, you got the buck. You can probably carry the elections in this country because you can never underestimate the ignorance of the American electorate.
And you can never overestimate the power of the people.
Yes.
If we are of one mind and we get out on a grassroots level and get away from the lethargy that we've suffered from, staying in front of the TV and all of this kind of thing, you know, we can address this, but we have to do it. I mean, our voting rights are being stripped from us. You know, the grandfather clause, the poll tax, the lies and lies upon lies. We need to fight back.
We thought we had
We
put
thought
those
we
things to
had.
rest, huh?
Exactly.
But they come back
no.
to us in more sophisticated, nuanced ways. And so it's
Certainly.
all the more incumbent on us to be very vigilant about how it's being done in terms of voter suppression.
That's right.
I mean, I went to look at the ballot in our current elections right here in the city, citywide elections, and see exactly how problematic that was in terms of how many people went in and not clear on understanding the lines or the roles in terms of whether you're a Working Families Party, a Women's Equality Party, Green Party, and what that really means in terms of keeping them and how you line them up on the ballot, you know. So there's a lot of problems connected there, to say nothing of having people with misinformation outside of the polls telling people you need ID to go in, you know. So they're picking up the wrong information and they're saying, this is not Texas.
Lies
this is New
upon
York.
lies. and Melba, Joyce, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the studios, darling.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to see 2 good friends here. When I walked and saw you,
Oh my God!
I knew you were here, but I didn't know her board was here though.
Yes, indeed.
Who has been just a wonderful, what I'm going to talk about. But anyhow, if they put the Miss Lynch in there, Miss Lynch will show them how to lynch.
You know.
Just one black woman, get her in there if she wants to fight. And
Yes.
that's the only reason he would have her. They're going to be in trouble. Some kind of way this woman is going to create something. We have to remember that woman whose statue is standing on 119th and St. Nicholas, we have to understand that this woman can't carry no gun, but the reason why they have whatever that is in Harriet's hand, is that Harriet?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That they just didn't put the gun in there because they didn't want her to look too dangerous. But you understand that she did work with the gun and without the gun. And you have to know that one person can make a difference. And one black woman can make a difference. That's what I wanted to talk to y'all about this morning. Herb wrote this Black Angel thing when I was going to do a documentary on my time in Vietnam in 1969 when I found that they were not sending any black or Hispanic women because it was a voluntary situation. Everybody was saying, hell no, I won't go. But we forgot that we had men there, black men there, who had already been lynched. And I was in my 20s, but I was like, oh no, they can't do this. They cannot. I'm going. So I went over after I saw this guy who was over the USO. And I said, why aren't you sending? He had a television show on intermission. He'd show people who were going to Vietnam. And I didn't see one black or one Hispanic. And I said to him, what are you doing? He said, no, none of them are volunteering. He meant big black women stars.
We can't, we don't have any qualified. Let me just bring this music up. Herb, I want to thank you. I know that you're jumping over. You got to be there at 10:30.
Yeah, I got to get on the other side.
Get on the other side. But you know, this conversation's so vital.
Continues. Luta continua.
Oh, yes.
Struggle
so
continues.
you will come back and talk to us more about
that. I live in the hood. I'm just up the road.
We need you here.
And he's in the middle of this, what we're getting ready to talk about.
We're going to hear some of Melba's music, I hope.
Absolutely.
But you wrote this. You wrote this article, this treatment for me.
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
you wrote this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my liner notes in Live in London. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, Herb.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being everywhere.